This is the Dead Sea, and despite appearances, it's one of the most inhospitable places on the planet. I mean, you can't drink the water. It's 10 times more salty than the ocean, but you can float on it. And you can rub mud all over your skin, and it's supposed to make your skin more vibrant and youthful. I'm sort of guessing that that happens after you wash it off. In fact, this whole area is dry and salty, which makes it the perfect natural environment for preservation. Maybe I should stay here a bit longer. Perhaps the best example of this area's ability to preserve came to light in a very unexpected way. In 1947, so the story goes, a young Bedouin boy, Mohammed the Wolf, and his cousin were out here looking for a stray goat. Thinking that the goat may have wandered into one of the many caves that dot this whole area, they decided to take a look around. Unfortunately, it was getting dark, and without torches, the boys couldn't see a whole lot. So they threw some stones into the cave to see if they could hit the goat and find it by its bleating. Well, they didn't hear the goat. Instead, they heard the sound of breaking pottery. The next morning, Mohammed returned to the cave to see what his stone had hit. What he discovered would captivate the world and change our understanding of the Bible forever. The sound Mohammed heard in the cave was the shattering of a pot. Inside the pot were scrolls, ancient handwritten documents that had remained preserved inside the cave for generations, placed there by a sect of the Jews known as the Essenes. Now, it was not the only pot or the only cave. In all, it turned out that there were 11 caves and over 900 manuscripts. The Essenes hid the scrolls during a time of religious persecution by the Romans, in order to protect the scrolls from being destroyed. As scholars studied these ancient scrolls, they discovered that about half of them were handwritten copies of the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament. They also knew from the handwriting style that many of the documents had been written more than 100 years before the birth of Christ. For generations, scholars had argued about the Bible's reliability. In all that hand copying, had errors crept in? Had mistakes been made? And had the Bible stories become more fanciful? Well, scholars now had 2,000-year-old copies for comparison.
My role as the curator of the Dead Sea Scrolls is actually to make sure that next generation will have the chance to see the original Dead Sea Scrolls discovered by Bedouins in the 40s and to have a full grasp of the tremendous significance these original documents have for the understanding of the origin of Judaism and Christianity.
Dr. Roitman, now I guess that most visitors that come to your museum come to see the Isaiah scroll.
Yes.
Do I understand that that is practically complete?
Yes. So in Qumran were discovered out of the about 1,000 documents, but out of the 200 or even more biblical manuscripts, only one is a full copy of any biblical book. And this is the marvelous Great Isaiah Scroll discovered by the Bedouins in Cave 1 by the end of 46 or beginning of 47. And it is a full version of the same biblical books you and me we have at home. All the 66 chapters of the traditional book of Isaiah are contained in this specific document, the second largest scroll ever discovered in the Judean desert.
Now that's a very exciting thing that you've just said.
Yeah, it's much more than exciting.
Because I've got a copy here of the English, of course, English copy of Isaiah. Let me just find it. Here it is. So what you're saying is that as I read here, could you say essentially the texts are the same?
Yes. Yes, essentially it's the same. But I think though that it's very significant. It's also the fact, and it's not less important, that we are not dealing with archaeology. We are dealing with a living tradition. Yes. For thousands of years, this tradition was kept by people who strongly believe in the power of the word. And I think that today, in a culture that is so powerful, the image, we have no DVD of Isaiah. We don't know how the guy looked like, but we have the word of the prophet Isaiah. And the Dead Sea Scrolls are the physical testimony of Isaiah's words. And his oracles, his message of a universal peace, pronounced 2,100 years ago in the land of Israel, is still relevant today.
The Bible wasn't written all in one go. Its formation took over 1,500 years. Some parts were written by kings, others by fishermen, tradespeople, and farmers. The Bible includes poetry, history, parable, prophecy, and narrative. You'd think a document of that scope would be random and fragmented. So it's uncanny that a book that is so diverse, so widely translated and copied, would come together into such a cohesive narrative.